and Upadesha Sahasri and Mandukya Gaudapadiya Karikas might be genuine. All other works are either spurious, either very suspicious. But real philological detailed arguments in his article. The second might be the colophon analysis of Paul Tucker, who thinks that the works attributed to Shankara Bhagavat Puja Pada, Bhagavat Puja Pada in colophons might be genuine, but those attributed to Shankara Acharya might be later works. So according to this estimation, he also makes kind of a colophon-based estimation, which is also the same. The Upanishad Bhashyas, Bhagavad Gita Bhashyas, Bhashya and Upadesha Sahasri are more or less, and Gaudapadiya Karika Bhashya are more or less genuine works. But the more thorough issues were addressed mainly by Sengaku Maeda in his few of his articles about Upanishad Bhashyas, and few of my later articles on specific works which I also subjected to philological investigation, and also to the investigation based on stylometric computer and statistical analysis. But there is one article a colleague of mine, Jacek Bankovsky, and me prepared, where we subjected all prose works attributed to Shankara, all prose works, we subjected them to the this method called the General Imposters Framework. And actually we came to the same conclusion. So the Upanishad Bhashyas, Brahma Sutra Bhashya, and Bhagavad Gita Bhashya and Upadesha Sahasri can be considered as works of the same author. Other mostly are spurious works, and computer method didn't acknowledge Shankara's works, them as a Shankara's work.
Thank you, Ivan. So Purushottam Bilimori has another question for Olena. To follow up on Dimitri's question on Olena's answer to my question, there's also the Jaini theory of a form of paroksha, which is more like yogi pratyaksha, permitting powers for clairvoyance, telepathy, and even mini omniscience, that is, knowledge of other minds and their contents.
Yes. Thank you very much, Professor Bilimori. Yes, I agree with your comment, of course, and the Jaina theory of extraordinary perception is presented in the excellent article by Pyotr Balcerovich, and it's the title is Extrasensory Perception in Jainism, Proofs of its Existence and its Soteriological Implications. And I think that also there are other excellent publications on the topic, and unfortunately I am not an expert in the Jaina philosophy. And may I also refer to the question by Dimitri, if possible, because I answered his question only partially, and Dimitri also asked me who is yogin in the Yuktidipika, and what is yoga, how yoga is understood in Sankhya and in the Yuktidipika. And it's a very difficult research question. And the same question is referred also to other darshanas. What is yoga and the yogin, for example, in Vaisheshika darshana, and the opinions of the scholars differ very much. As to Sankhya, I think that in Sankhya, yogin is the one who is advanced in mastering Sankhya teaching through special practice recommended by this very darshana. And I think that yoga is a practical part of Sankhya Darshana. And yogins are also those people who developed abilities that that are higher than abilities of ordinary people, and they develop these abilities due to special practices recommended by Sankhya. And I think, of course, that Sankhya is a sister darshana of yoga, and sometimes they are considered together. Though I am not an adherent of such approach of considering them together, I think that they are kin, but they are sister, but different textual traditions. And of course, Sankhya is influenced by by yoga and its understanding of special of the practical part of darshana. But however, I think that according to Sankhya, yogin is the person who is advanced in mastering Sankhya teaching through special practices recommended by this very darshana, that is by Sankhya. It's a difficult research topic, yes, and in the Yuktidipika we have one passage which indicates also that the liberating cognition which discriminates between Purusha and Prakriti is treated as the yogic perception. We have such a passage in the Yuktidipika, and when siddhis are discussed and the liberating cognition is called perception, and it is clear that it's the yogic perception according to the Yuktidipika. Thank you very much.
Yes, thank you all. And since you raised this topic, and I'd like to make a little self-promotion here, I can refer you to my own article on natural liberation in Sankhya, which actually try to discuss those issues. I think that some of the discussions in Sankhya suggest that they consider the possibility of natural liberation which is not the result of any kind of yogic practice or that kind of practice, or in fact, yogic practice might be some kind of a manifestation of already, this liberating process going on somewhere on the level of the gunas or something like that. Yes,
I need to read your article very carefully again in order to give a competent answer. I only know that as to spontaneous liberation, it can be achieved through uha, which does not belong, it's one of the siddhis, and it does not belong to pramanas, and it seems to me that rishis can achieve liberation through uha spontaneously.
Right, and of course the paradigmatic example is Kapila.
This time, but I need to read your article very carefully, and I will do this, and I will contact you definitely.
Yes, thank you, I appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
Yes, thank you, Elena. I have a brief question to Aditya, if possible. I was wondering, I'm not familiar closely with Shuddha Advaita, but I wonder regarding the title, why is it Shuddha Advaita? And is it an attempt to distinguish between Shankaracharya Advaita or?
Okay, so thank you for the question. And as I told in my paper, that Shuddhadvait is a Sanskrit term, and it is made up of two terms, Shuddha plus Advait. And there's a grammatical theme known as samasa, and in this word, karmadhara samas is used, and Shuddhayoho Advaitam iti Shuddhadvaitam, it is said that. So, Shankara's the Shankaracharya, Adi Shankaracharya believed that Jagat Brahma Satyam Jagan Mithya. So he had an Advaitam, but in Shuddhadvaita philosophy, we believe that the Jiva is also Shuddha and the Brahma is also Shuddha. and the both the Advait is of both of them. So we use another adjective of Shuddha. It's not Keval Advaitam. Ramanuja use Vishishtadvaitam. We use Shuddhadvaitam. So, did you get your answer, or mm,
Yeah, I think so.
yes?
Okay, do we have any more questions to the
Yes,
presenters?
I have a question from Dr. Andrianic. That I heard of Chirpat Panjarika Stotram of Sri Shankaracharya ji. I just wanted to inquire about the authorship of it. Some tell that when he was passing by a way and he saw an old man on the verge of death, and then he wrote all the shlokas. Some say that the following Shankaracharya wrote the shlokas. So, what's your view on that? So, did Adi Shankaracharya wrote all of the shlokas, or the um, following Shankaracharya wrote all the shlokas? What's your stand on that?
Thank you very much for your question. I do not have a good ear for the English language, and I am sorry that probably I missed the first part of your question. And is your question referred to the yogic perception in Shankara Acharya, or I did not
No,
understand? I am sorry.
sorry, my question was to Dr. Andrianic. So I was asking
I'm
them.
sorry. I'm sorry.
No problem, no problem.
So if I couldn't understood, I think correctly, but you ask my view of some shlokas attributed to Shankara. But if this is correct, I didn't understood which shlokas you think.
I was talking about the Charapat Panjarika Stotram, Bhaji Govindam, Moodhamate, Prapte Sannihite Marane, Nahi Rakshati Bhutru Yukarane. So, was that written by Adi Shankaracharya ji, or Madhusudan Saraswati and all of the disciples of Shankaracharya ji? What's your stand on that?
This is a difficult, very difficult question. According to the manuscript colophons, most of them are attributed to Shankaracharya, which would point to the later date than the Adi Shankaracharya. But the content sometimes is not enough to give an exact stand. So you can attribute something to Shankara or not, mostly if some later doctrinal features appear. But in such devotional shlokas, usually no doctrinal features appear. Sometimes some later concept might appear, and that would speak against Shankara's authorship. But usually nothing of that sort appears. So it's hard to speak about this. One of possible indications which was raised earlier in scholarship, that actually Upadesha Sahasri, and there are strong indications for that Upadesha Sahasri is not a unique work. It is actually put together of few different small pieces. So one of the theories that maybe Upadesha Sahasri is just a compilation of original Shankara's shlokas which he composed. So indeed, that theory, all other shlokas might be later, but this is there is, for now, we don't have any exact arguments for that. These are just models to explain something like that. So I might also refrain from Bhaja Govindam and others to claim that either Shankaras or later, but some indications like colophon would indicate a later date for that verse.
Thank you.
I actually always wondered why, I mean, it is understandable why some of the later Advaitin writings would be attributed to Shankara, perhaps even some devotional chantings, but why yogic, for example, the Yoga Bhasha Vivarana, right, was attributed to, so it is a different darshana. Do you have any thoughts about why did this happen?
So Vivarana is another. So of course, the Yoga Bhasha Vivarana is actually not a yogic work; it's an Advaita work. and it's very much in the line of Shankara's philosophy. So Yoga Pasha Vivarana on doctrinal level points towards Shankara's authorship, as was argued already by Wilhelm Halfas and also by Kengo Harimoto. They both argued not very, completely. They're not completely, convinced that it is Shankara, but doctrinal features point towards very close doctrinal features to Shankara's original works. However, the GI, the General Posters Framework, do not approve Shankara's authorship of the Vivarana, so it was not attributed, or Shankara's authorship was not verified by the computer method. Although on the doctrinal level, on the terminological level, it shares many, it shares common features with Shankara's works. But of course, the question is in these other spurious works attributed to Shankara, we don't have only works which are not Advaitic. We have clearly Tantra, very, very tantric, many tantric shlokas dedicated to the goddess, which is completely unattested in Shankara's works. We have Kundalini Yoga, we have chakras, we have everything. So, of course, question is how is it possible that such works, which are so closely, so far away from Shankara's doctrines, were attributed to Shankara? But this is more historical features, and they speak for kind of inclusivism of the Advaita, later Advaita doctrine, which included many of the Hindu practices, which is the case even now in Shankara Mathas, where you will find tantric practices normally practiced by Advaitins of today, even of Shankaracharyas of the great Mathas, just to mention.
That's interesting. So is there some kind of a reduction of Purusha and Prakriti to just the reality of Brahman and Maya or something like that, or on the level of terminology? I was coming about the Vivarana.
I'm not aware now of that. It's not as I could relate. It is not discussed at all. In Shankara's hermeneutical system, it's quite simple. Everything which is not the highest Brahman which is not Paramarthika, can be put everything on the lower level of cognition. So on the lower level of the Vyavaharika level, you can put just everything.
Oh, I see.
So it's no problem for a Advaita commentator to incorporate whatever he wants into his system.
All right, thank you. So do we have any more questions or comments?
Okay. So I had another question from Dr. Andrea. That I was curious about the granthas, the scriptures that Sri Shankaracharya wrote upon Krishna. Like, I have heard of Krishnastakam. Do you have any such poetries or any commentaries upon Krishna of Sri Shankaracharya that of a devotional kind of sense of devotional service to Krishna or devotional seva of Krishna? Do you have any other scriptures of Sri Shankaracharya regarding that?
Oh yes. This is an important question. Very important question. It's the point that the Shankara's original work are clearly related to Vaishnavism, not to Shaivism. So the influx of Shaivism into Advaita Vedanta might be of a little bit earlier date. I'm not quite sure when, but Shankara and his immediate followers, Padmapada, Sureshwara, stand firmly on Vaishnava position. So Shankara in his Brahma Sutra Bhashya, whatever, whenever he refers to, for instance, worship, he always refers, for instance, to Shalagrama, never towards Lingam or something like that. So his terminology and everything, and it was established in scholarship even earlier, that he has clear leanings towards Vaishnavism, or maybe he was brought in the Vaishnava community. So all his terminology and all his examples are always from the Vaishnava circles, never from the Shaiva. And the same is with Sureshwara and with Padmapada and with many later Advaita teachers. So the leanings towards Vaishnavism is very clear in the early Advaita. And of course, he wrote a commentary, which is most probably his, on the Bhagavad Gita, where Krishna's role is, of course, very well known.
So was Madhusudan Saraswati born before Sureshwara or after? When was Madhusudan Saraswati? What was his time period, Madhusudan Saraswati?
Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't manage to catch this. I'm sorry. Can you repeat? Sorry.
I was just curious about the time period of Madhusudan Saraswati, as he has written many commentaries on Gita and many commentaries on Sri Shankaracharya ji. So was he a disciple of Shankaracharya ji, or was he a Shankaracharya ji? So what's his role in the whole in the whole lineage of Sri Shankaracharya ji? Madhusudan Saraswati's role.
But Madhusudana belongs to the 16th century.
Oh, so he was born very like near to. Okay.
No, like 900 years between them.
Oh.
900 years.
So, do we have any more questions or comments? Right, so I think we can conclude this session in this case. So I would like to thank all the presenters and our guests, all the attendees, for listening to the lectures, for giving the presentations, for your questions, your answers. I think we'll finish here.